Call the September 27th meeting to order at 7:06? 7:08. If we could please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. At this time, we don't have any acknowledgements for today. I believe that's a scene of work that's right there too.
Right, yeah.
We have to make sure that we swap that out. We are not making any changes for the agenda. I will entertain a motion for the approval of minutes for the September 13th minute.
Motion.
Second. Any discussion before we do a roll call vote, since we have two members online?
I believe the minutes still reflect Mira Shake as the student representative.
So we would have to just make that change.
Is there a board?
Yeah, and that's because the agenda is still, we're pulling it from the old agenda. I see it on here too.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Change that on mine right now. So if we could just make that change going forward. Any other changes? Okay, we will go ahead and do a roll call vote. So we'll start in the room. So Jaden?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Abstain. Just, I guess you have the name. So, okay, Tony?
Aye.
And Lord?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Therefore, minutes are approved as is with the change of the name. So. Okay, at this time, we will open up for public participation. I do have a couple of people in the room and also people online. So what ends up happening is if you could please either raise your hand or online raise your hand and I will call on you. If you can list your name and address for the record. And then you will have 2 minutes. Dr. Willett will put a timer up so you can see your 2 minutes. That way everyone it's equal and fair to everyone. Once again, like I said, we'll go from the room if you want to go in the room and online back and forth to anyone who would like to speak. You have, okay.
In there,
I will offer the room first. So when you come up, the owl will it follows you and it will pick up you. So everyone online can see this through.
So where do I stand?
So you can stand over here, you can stand over here. The owl will, like I said, pick you up.
you.
Yeah, it finds you.
No.
And once again, you'll have 2 minutes, and if you could please list your name and your address for the record.
Yes, I'm Katrin Hinrichsen, 192 Goose Lane. Surprised to be the first one speaking, but I have a few words about the transgender and gender nonconforming student policy. And I guess I have a little bit of misgivings about the emphasis that's in there now about making contact with families, putting such a high priority on that. I think the priority really has to be on the privacy and the well-being of the student. And I'm speaking as the parent of a transgender student who, and my son spoke to friends first. He spoke to friends at the GSA, so probably the teacher facilitating the GSA was aware. And then probably it was 4 months later before he chose to speak to me. And it's not out of fear, it was just out of the discovery process and how he chose to share those things. And I don't think it would have been helpful or respectful for the school to kind of mix in there and say, oh, we must immediately tell your parents what you're telling us. So the language that I see here that was crossed out, school personnel should not disclose information that may reveal the student's transgender status, including to parents or to other school personnel. That really would be, I think, would be better to the language that seems to be what's now chosen, to really make every effort to include the parents or guardians. I mean, I agree the parents, it's good if they're involved, but I think the privacy and well-being of the student should come first. So it says to the extent permitted by law, and maybe that covers all the states. The general tone, I think, is is not the best. And I think the original wording, or maybe it's not the original wording, but the wording that's crossed out, I think is really better.
Thank you. I will take someone online. So we have Rebecca Risley.
Hi, good evening. Rebecca Risley, 103 Mountain Spring Road. I actually have a question regarding Ms. Griffin's post on town social media channels regarding the vote to renew the superintendent's contract for 3 years and to provide a salary increase, which he was overdue and had forgone in a previous year, both of which she voted against. And when asked about this by residents, Ms. Griffin commented, quote, "Feel free to email me at the address above. I'm happy to share why I voted the way I did," end quote. However, when the same vote occurred last year, where she also voted against the superintendent during his evaluation, and I asked her reasoning via email, her direct response to me was, quote, "Ms. Risley, I have asked to reach out to the board attorney to find out what is allowed to be shared from the executive session. I wouldn't want to violate any rules and be reported again to the Ethics Commission. I'm sure you can FOIA the info if you'd like to go that route," end quote. And so as she's now willing to share her reasoning with residents, and that should be all residents that the board represents, I'd respectfully request that she share her reason on the record during points of information this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I will go into the room. If anyone in the room would like to speak, you can raise your hand. Come on up.
Hello, my name is Matilda Murray, 196 Lower Road. In 1990, there was a geeky, awkward, somewhat shy kid attending middle school. The kid decided to get brave one day and let the fun, cool new student teacher know a secret. But this wasn't any secret. It was at the kid's very identity. It was one of those secrets that they were afraid to tell their parents. For a whole semester, they wrote up letters and ripped them up because they weren't quite right. It needed to be perfect. It wasn't something they could screw up. This kid even started riding their bike to the library to learn more about this secret. One day after the right amount of research and planning, this kid went to the cool, fun student teacher. The kid walked up to the student teacher with a letter in hand, with tears in their eyes, and said, "I don't always feel like a boy." The student teacher said, "What?" The kid looked up and said, "I don't feel like a boy. I think I should have been born as a girl." I wish I could say that kid got some kind words that day, some kindness in a sea full of bullies. But that kid's student teacher used the opportunity to get some street cred with sixth graders. He told the whole class that began an awful middle school for that kid. Bullying and harassment for years for that kid, for me. And despite all of this, if my parents knew, it would have been so much worse. Please think about kids' privacy. Please think about kids' rights to come out on their own terms. This will cause problems for kids. Thank you.
Okay, let's go to Bethany.
Hi, good evening. Bethany Lesko, 26 Deer Meadow. I just wanted to express my support of the approval of the increase for paraprofessionals' hourly wage. I know, I think if I were going to take a gamble, I could look around the board and guess how this vote will go. But with that being said, the work and dedication our paras give to our students is endless. To anyone who has ever stepped in, volunteered, or known a paraprofessional, what they do day in and day out cannot be measured by testing and outcomes. They are everything that keeps school running. They provide emotional support, a friendly face to kids who didn't even realize they needed it that day. Ask your child to name their favorite para. I have no doubt there is someone who stands out to every child, or no doubt that at TEPTO events, kids ran up to paraprofessionals because that was their friendly face. In 2024, Connecticut minimum wage will rise to $15.69. We are asking our paras to wipe noses, help with the bathroom, support wild lunch times, and recess assignments. Basically, they are told where to fill in, when, with who, and for how long. It's not an option. For $1 more, any 16-year-old can walk into any given retail store and expect, not ask for, expect and be given, no questions asked, that money. I could go on and on, but I think if I have to ramble on to why our kids deserve our paras to come to work every day, to support them, to support our teachers, and keep tasks moving and running, if I need to, give reason to vote yes. Then you need to look into your own morals and ethics of why you're on this board and truly who you are. Perhaps you're fortunate enough not to have to work, but how we are paying our paras currently is dismal. It's unfair, and this is your chance to do better. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I would like to offer, yeah.
Hi, my name is Becky Murray and I live at 8 Leaf Lane. I'm here to say that the policy with the parent, when you come out of school, they have to contact a parent, is not right. When I was going through that in 7th and 8th grade, the last thing I wanted is my parents to find out. And my parents are supportive parents. Never mind some of my friends who went through the same thing at that time, where they were unsure of their parents being supportive or not. And it's not morally correct for anyone to be outed to their parents just because they talk to a teacher. I want a different name. I want a different pronoun. That could cause problems at home. That's it for me.
Thank you so much for speaking. Okay, let's go to Rachel.
Hi there, my name is Rachel Axler, 46 Josiah Lane. I wanted to come on here tonight to tell you that I wholeheartedly support the para contract, the pay increase for the paras. My son has autism. He has been in the Tallinn Public Schools since he was 3 years old. He came into the schools not speaking. Without para support and the multidisciplinary approach that they use with teachers, he would not be where he is today in the 9th grade. He's still doing well with one-to-one support in classes, and he's learning. But he has autism, so his learning takes longer than his typical peers. And without the smart, hardworking paras that have worked with him, who are empathetic and caring, he would not be where he is today. And not only that, I've been working in the school system, but also I have been a volunteer in the school system for a long time. I don't work in the school system now, but I volunteered for my son for a long time. And I saw how the paras, when they're assigned to someone, they not only work with that someone, but they're helping other children, other typical children who might need help in math, reading, anything, social studies. And they're always there working really hard, being flexible, and the teachers really appreciate them. So I just wanted to get on here tonight to tell you how much and how far my son has come to give him an equal education. And I appreciate the paras so much. Every year, I appreciate those paras so much. They do so much work, and they deserve this contract approved. They deserve better pay. They are fantastic, and please support that contract. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you very much. Julie.
Hello, my name is Stanley Murray. I live at 8 Leaf Lane. Today, I want to talk about the transgender policy. I am a trans girl. I think and strongly stand by that we should not make people in the Tallinn public school systems that find out that kids are transgender, non-binary, and etc. should not tell parents. This is because kids need time to feel out themselves. I feel when I came out, I would have hated not being able to feel it out myself. I would not have been who I was today. When the call came home, which I didn't really want or was expecting, my parents were totally and very luckily accepting, but imagine my parents were.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great, let's go to Liz Costa.
Hello, Liz Costa, 54 Josiah Lane, Tolland. I'd like to express my support for the BOE to pass the policy 5700, policy for transgender and nonconforming youth, and ask that the Tolland Board of Education support and follow the law. Providing a policy like this takes nothing away from all students. It just assures that some aren't missed and supported in the policy. In addition, I'd like to advocate for our professionals in this town. Beyond supporting our students, they support our teachers and the administration by helping out in all classrooms and in situations where there's no teacher due to an absence. Our own students saw them step in to assist in several of their own classes and help other students. It can be perceived as a thankless role, but one that deserves to be paid appropriately for working with our students to support their ability to learn. Finally, I'd like to thank the Board of Education members that supported the superintendent's recent contract extension and raise of 2%, and ask those that didn't support specifically why they chose not to support this increase in extension. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's move to Colleen.
Good evening, everyone. Colleen Udacek, speaking as a resident and not as an elected official. I'm here tonight in full support of the paraprofessional contract, as having a son that's had a one-to-one in his entire educational in Taunton High School, now in 10th grade. They have been instrumental in his growth, learning, and support. And I know without their support, he would not have the successes he's had to date. So I really hope that this board can come to a consensus and vote unanimously on this. Our paraprofessionals are underpaid compared to other towns, and you can see there's even help wanted signs in front of some of our schools. So please, again, consider greatly on the value of the people that are the most important people and people with disabilities, and how they also help in regular classrooms as well.
Thank you, Colleen. Let's go to Lisa Day Lewis.
Day Lewis, 63 Tolland Green. Here tonight at this first public participation as a representative, president of the PFLAG Tolland Mansfield chapter. And I would like to read a statement that was given to me by a facilitator of PFLAG support groups to read. My name is Ace Ricker. As a multiracial transgender man, I knew I had to speak up about the change in language of the transgender and non-binary policy being put forth at the Board of Ed meeting in Tolland. When my parents discovered my trans identity, I found myself not only disowned but homeless. This happens to youth in the LGBTQ+ community far too often. The Trevor Project's most recent survey tells us that 28% of LGBTQ youth in the US experience homelessness or housing instability. Not even 1/3 of transgender youth feel affirmed at home. Almost half of LGBTQ+ youth seriously considered attempting suicide in the past year. Almost 20% did make an attempt. These studies conclude that it takes one supportive adult to cut the risk for suicide in half. Changing the language of the policy to out students could take away that one supportive adult. If teachers are required to out students who use different names or pronouns in school to their parents, this will not only be breaking their right to privacy, but also potentially put them in danger. It's disheartening to disclose how often I hear young kids being physically or verbally abused when they are outed to their parents or a caregiver. Every time I ask new members of my parent and caregiver support group what they wish for their queer child, the answer is the same: love, support, and safety. Support.
Lisa, the 2 minutes are up. We're gonna have to on to Chris.
Chris Jimenez, 68 Anthony Road. I am here to express my wholehearted support for the policy in front of the Board of Education, specifically the decision not to require parental notification when a student asks to be identified by a different name or gender in compliance with Connecticut law. This policy represents a significant step towards creating a safe and inclusive educational environment for all students, regardless of their gender identity or expression. It is crucial that we to recognize the importance of respecting and affirming the gender identities of students. Gender identity is an essential aspect of a person's self-concept, and it is so fundamental that we honor each student's understanding of themselves. By allowing students to express their gender identity without requirement of parental notification, we are acknowledging their autonomy and creating a supportive atmosphere where they can thrive academically and emotionally. This policy not only aligns with Connecticut law, but also with the principles of quality and non-discrimination enshrined in our society's values. All students deserve the right to an education that is free from discrimination, harassment, or stigmatization. By removing barriers to self-identification and expression, we foster an inclusive and affirming environment that benefits all members of the school's community. Furthermore, this policy can have a positive impact on the mental and emotional well-being of transgender and gender nonconforming students. Research has shown that students who are supported in their gender identities experience improved mental health outcomes and higher academic achievement. We just simply ask the Board of Education to follow Connecticut law. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, if anyone else would like to speak, please raise your hand. Everyone in the room has spoken, so anyone else online, please raise your hand at this time. And if not, I will close this out. I'll be closing out the public participation, and let's go to correspondence.
Right. Just a note before we start, this includes some correspondence since the July 26th meeting, so there's quite a few emails. We had an email notifying the board of state changes to school lunch programs. We got an email asking about the ethics complaint agenda item from back in August. An email with an attached letter discussing comments made by the superintendent while discussing the ethics complaint at an August meeting. And another email referencing the same comments about ethics complaint. We had a response from State Representative Nuccio regarding the Board of Ed letter concerning unfunded mandates. We had an email asking how to file a complaint against a staff member. The author sent 2 follow-up emails on that topic a few days later. We had an email thanking the district for including parental notification in the draft of policy 5700. We had an email asking if the bus route could be changed so the author's children could be picked up on the side road. We had an email asking for the district to have a COVID policy, an email with information on environmentally friendly buses. We had 3 emails asking for proper parental notification safeguards in policy 5700. We had a couple of emails in support of policy 5700 as written, an email against requiring parental notification in policy 5700. Another 2 emails in favor of policy 5700 as written, an email asking for a record of all complaints made against the superintendent in the past 5 years. Another email in support of 5700 as written, and finally an email in support of the para contract.
Thank you. At this time, I will open up to points of information for any board members. If you're online, please raise your hand. If you're in the room, just kind of look at me and let me know. And Dr. Willett, if you have anything that you would like to say at this time too. Griffin has her hand up. Let's go to Griffin.
Thank you, Ashley. I just wanted to comment on Ms. Risley's question that was directed to me. Regarding Dr. Willett's contract, I'm happy to share my thoughts on that. And just for the record, I don't recall exactly when the email that I sent to her last year was. I do recall sending said email. And it was sometime after that that I did get an email back from Jessica Ritter through Ashley and Sophia. that said a board member has the right to share his or her position with respect to Dr. Willett's contract. It would, however, be inappropriate for a board member to share the thoughts of others that were discussed in executive session. Any board member who shares his or her personal thoughts on the matter should be reminded not to discuss any pending litigation matters. So that was my eyes, that was permission that I was allowed to share. So therefore, I would be happy to read the email I did send to someone recently regarding why I voted the way I did on Dr. Willett's contract. First off, I want to say that the Evergreen Clause is something that I've never truly agreed with. I've never actually understand it. Extending a contract 2 years from now in 2025 to 2026 without actually seeing how an employee performs, at least during the next 2 years before you renew the third year, never made any sense to me. But my reasons include, and I'm just going to read this, the board chair, vice chair, and superintendent changed the evaluation process without board approval. For the past 3 years, each board member was given the opportunity to write their own evaluation. The board would deliberate and come up with one final draft. This year, we were only allowed to share our thoughts in a meeting, of which I could not attend as I was on vacation. So since I did not agree with the final evaluation and felt it was not reflective of my views, I was not going to vote yes on anything that I was not involved in. Second, in the June 28th, 2023 meeting, the superintendent disagreed with a board member's factual comment on Facebook. He received a copy of this comment from an anonymous source in his home mailbox. Rather than discussing this with the board member, he instead scanned it and put it on the share screen during the meeting. This was unprofessional and downright petty. I cannot imagine doing this to any board member without there being some repercussions or at least a discussion on this behavior. Nor can I imagine doing this to my boss and still having a job the next day. Third, in the August 8th, 2023 meeting, the superintendent said a very vague comment twice regarding a church service. He told people to reach out to him for more information. I did, and it was revealed that he was referring to Blessed Sacrament Parish. This vague comment turned into a bashing of St. Matthew's Church and the Catholic Church in general on social media. Blessed Sacrament Parish is not only my parish, but is also my employer. This was unacceptable, and when asked to discuss this further, I was ignored. Also in the August 8th, 2023 meeting, according to the minutes, Dr. Willett stated, he does not work for board members. He works for the town of Tolland, the people of Tolland, and the children of Tolland, not for a politically broken board. Also unacceptable. We have been told since day one that the superintendent is our only employee, not admin, not teachers, and not staff. Dr. Willett has circumvented this board and makes decisions without us. This statement made it clear why he's done this for so many years. Lastly, the backroom dealings between the superintendent, chair, and vice chair, which resulted in his near perfect evaluation and the salary presented that was also voted upon. Since I had nothing to do with any of these proceedings, I couldn't in good conscience vote yes on something I was not involved in. So those are my explanations for why I voted the way that I did. Thank you.
Okay. We'll go in the room. I don't know if you want to respond now or wait.
Yeah, I mean, Ms. Griffin was given, actually, the process was explained to Ms. Griffin and she has ignored the explanation. The reasoning for not having the documents provided the way they were in the past is that they are foiable and would be a violation of the executive session, which was explained to Ms. Griffin, but she's ignoring that. That was explained on a number of occasions. Ms. Griffin and all board members were given more than a month and a half, and I extended the deadline. The board asked me to extend the deadline 2 or 3 times, which I did, so that board members could be accommodated. So there was more than 2 months for Ms. Griffin to meet with me and the vice chair and chair to go over any concerns that she had with respect to my evaluation. She chose not to do that. So it wasn't about one meeting. She's right that she did not attend that, but there were many opportunities to provide the chair and vice chair with feedback that she did not do. A communication she sent, I became aware of. I responded to in great detail, checking point by point each of the things that were stated as they were inaccurate. Ms. Griffin has stated that I've circumvented the board is an inaccurate statement, and that has been shown, and I have many documents to show that that is actually not the case. The statements being made here are very inaccurate and are being made in public session. So if there's anything that any of you need clarification on, I ask the public, if you are told something, please reach out to me. I will provide you extensive documentation to show that these claims are not actually accurate and are a continuation of the harassment of your staff member. They're misstatings, they're inaccurate. For instance, the comment Ms. Ford made was that it had not been adequately, it had not been addressed in the March 8th meeting. It actually had been addressed in the March 8th meeting. And there are plenty of documents to show that. So that was an inaccurate statement that Ms. Griffin is saying is accurate. So that clearly, please, public, please, anything stated by any of these individuals, send me their statement. I will send you extensive information to show the inaccuracy of that statement. Another thing, the church service. I was explicitly, as superintendent, mentioned in a church service. I merely brought that up as something that I found to be unusual. In my 20 plus or 26 years of education, I have never seen that in any place I have ever worked. Ms. Griffin brings it up again. I actually responded in extremely general terms. I did not say who had done it. I did not say whether it was a member of the public. I did not say whether it was a member of the clergy. I simply expressed that I thought it was unusual. I have met with the priests and had a good conversation with them. I do feel like at this point, Ms. Griffin's misstatement of the situation is again another misrepresentation. Please reach out to me. I will provide you the communications I have had with all parties on this matter, and I will show you. Ms. Griffin's statements are once again misleading and inaccurate.
Hi, let's go back online and then we'll continue going through everyone that has a chance to talk, and then we'll go back for seconds. Okay, Tony?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to get an update, if we can, on the transportation, specifically the app. Are we still on target to have that? I think, Dr. Willett, you said last meeting, beginning of October?
That's right. Yeah, we had our first meeting for implementation last week. We have another implementation meeting this week. It will likely be that parent guardians will be able to sign up for that first or second week in October. We seem to be on the timeline for that for the beginning of October. They'll be signing up and picking the bus that their child is on. So just want to make sure that as parents are registering for it, they have an opportunity to choose the bus. So they just want to make sure they know their bus number, because it's not by student, the tracking is by bus. So we did post some videos for that. I'll put out more information as soon as I have it, including how to download it, how to register for it. We have to pick some coding. What I'm likely going to pick here is the student ID number. So at this point, if you're starting to think about how using the app, just make sure you are aware of your student ID number. Like I did for the ESY program and other programs, I'll try to send a communication that reminds parents of their students' student IDs, so that then they'll be able to use that, to get in. That's a unique number that, generally only the parents will know about their child. So once you do get in, if you have 3 kids, you only need one of the student IDs to register. You'll be able to then look at whatever bus you select and select a series of buses so that you can track them. And I'm told, even though I haven't seen it directly because I don't have it yet, that it has a map, and it basically looks a lot like the apps that you're used to for things like there's the car app there, Uber, things like that. You'll be able to see that the vehicle moving. And similar to the Apple products where you see the vehicle moving through the map.
Copy. Thank you.
So first, I just want to thank everybody who participated in public participation, but especially our 2 students who have unfortunately left now, but it takes a lot of courage to stand up at a young age, and they were very well spoken, and I want to thank them for participating in the process. I did see, a bit of, the online discussion that was already referenced, regarding the vote on Dr. Willett's, extension and compensation. So just so that everyone understands, I'm pretty careful about what I respond to, on social media. I feel like it can very easily teeter on doing business outside of the boardroom. And because I had not said it publicly, I didn't want to answer that in social media first. But because it was questioned about the 2 absent votes, first of all, I'd like to apologize. It was not my intention to miss the last meeting. We had an accident at my home that day, so I had to cancel that day. I apologize to Dr. Willett for not being here throughout his process. I do feel I was very involved in his evaluation process. When we did put together his evaluation, there were 5 board members present. I was one of 4 board members who actually participated in putting together his evaluation. So I do feel like I was a big part of that process. In doing so, I would like to publicly state that I would have voted yes for both Dr. Willett's compensation package and the extension to his contract.
I was just gonna add to Tony's point about the buses, since it's been a topic of discussion for really most of this term. It might be a good idea, now we have a new contract in place, to revisit this at another board meeting, just to kind of get like a status update. To see where we are and see if we've made some improvements, so I'd like to see that on a future agenda.
Yeah, sort of to Jacob's point, I think our next meeting would be after the proposed, I guess, deadline, is there a specific date aimed for October for that to roll out, or is it sort of October as I guess it's more of a question than a comment, but Dr. Willett, if you have a sort of guesstimate, if that's early October, is it later October?
I'm gonna have to say within the first 2 weeks or so.
So then whenever our first meet, I don't know the meeting schedule, in October, but the meeting after that should be rolled out. I feel like that would make sense to me.
I'm just gonna add a couple of comments because in terms of Dr. Willett's review, all board members had ample time to either meet with Dr. Willett, have conversations, you know, especially after being attacked multiple times with the ethics complaint over nothing, the time that it takes to just deal with FOIA requests, the time and energy exerted with everything. You know, if you wanted to be involved with the process, you could have been. There was ample opportunity to be involved in his review. Those that showed up, that wanted to have something to say, it was put in. I don't think it's once again this convoluted that Waltz and I have you know, something nefarious going on. I'm just so done with it and tired, and the town has spent more money than anything else that over nothing, over absolutely nothing, because people don't want to do the work, or they, you know, have other tangents that they want to go on. It's just enough is enough. I'm just so over all of it. It just, we're here for our students and our administration. And I thank you, Dr. Willett, for, you know, answering parents' calls in the middle of the night, answering emails, being sensitive to when we have topics going on within our school system to make sure that our students feel comfortable. There's so much that goes on. I would never want your job. Not that I would ever look to be a superintendent, but there's a level of respect that needs to be provided, and I think it's sorely lacking on this board. And it's really sad. It's really extremely sad that every single time we go around and around and it's the same attacks over and over. It's the same things, it just never changes. Like, we can't ever just move forward and just continue on with actually doing board work inside of the chambers here versus going on social media, spouting out stuff here, spouting out stuff here. It just doesn't make any sense. Like, that's not why we're here. That's not why we were voted in for. And it just needs to stop. It really, truly does. It's just the time and energy and the amount of resources that are extended on so many levels, when ultimately we have to work together as a board to do positive things, an ounce of energy for all this negativity were just put toward the positivity. You know how many changes, positive changes we could have done? You know how many things that he could have gotten more accomplished instead of answering to an ethics complaint that just goes on forever. That was a year worth of work. A year. And for what? To say that we are not unethical? Why? Why? And now we're gonna go this with about his review. To me, it just needs to stop. I've really had enough. So I
I would encourage, if you are sent anything from a board member, and particularly, since we're talking about certain board members, but anyone, if you're given an explanation, please reach out to me, forward me that explanation and give me the opportunity to provide you the relevant contextual information around it. Because I think that's important. If there's an allegation being made, please forward me the email, reach out to me. I'll sit down with you, or I will respond in an email and go point for point to anything that was stated. Because frankly, doing this in a board meeting like this, it's difficult to do that. So please don't hesitate to do that, and you will get, I promise you, a better balance of information. Please do that.
That's my second topic. I do think, in terms of the policy, 5700, the transgender, I appreciate all the emails that have been sent and read through and people's, personal opinions. I do, at the end of the day, know that this has to go through, Shipman and Goodwin to have their A-OK, that we follow the certificate protocols. So to me, I believe that our policy committee did a great job crafting this. I think that it was really thoroughly thought out. I'm glad to have something written, and then it can always change once Connecticut changes anything. I feel like at least we have a start to having a safe environment for our students. That's just, what I wanted to say. Griffin?
I just wanted to say one thing. I did not bring up the ethics complaint. During public participation, there were a couple of people who asked why I voted no. One specifically called up my name. The reasons I gave were my reasons. They were my why. And that's all this was. I did not have any intention of bringing this up during points of information tonight, but to be transparent, when somebody asks me a question during a public board meeting, I am going to answer it with my truth. So I just wanted to reiterate that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad everyone has their truths. Okay, let's move on to, what do we have here? Student representatives.
Hey guys, what's up? So thing on the docket today, we did have our open house last week. And I couldn't make it. I had too much homework because high school. But I heard that it went really well. A lot of my friends went to help out around there. I heard that it went very smoothly, and I know my parents really enjoyed it. So yeah, the open house meeting went really well.
We also voted on our homecoming theme, which will be New York City at night.
We also did some pep rally planning. It's not absolutely confirmed yet, but the ones that we know for sure are happening are tug of war, Hungry Hippos, the chorus will sing the national anthem, and then a few other games sprinkled in that we haven't exactly decided on yet, but they will be decided on at the meeting next week. So that will be brought to.
Also, to get more student participation in like our sports games at the high school, the captains will go on the morning announcements and promote their games.
Speaking of stuff that we've planned, we did actually plan the entire Spirit Week and all of the days. So get this, Lisa. Monday, USA Day, wear your red, white, and blue. Tuesday is Tropical Tuesday. Wear tropical clothing. Wednesday is Neon Day. Dress like from the 80s. That's not true. Just dress in neon. Thursday is Class Color Day. And Friday is Barbie and Ken Day, based off the smash hit Barbie.
Also, we will be having Eagle Blog tomorrow, exciting, where ninth graders will be working on mood meters and 9th, 10th, 11th will be doing NEASC student survey.
College visits have started on October 6th. The Business Pathways program is taking a trip to Bentley and Brandeis universities. And some schools have started visiting to Tolland, which seniors can sign up for in the counselor's office.
And the world language trip is to Costa Rica this year and will be open to 10th to 12th grade.
Any questions?
Did you see Barbie?
I did see Barbie. It was very good. So we're actually going to leave now. Sarah's homework and I have the Survivor premiere. But yeah, that's it. Thank you guys.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Just happy about tug of war.
I think some sites of the firm. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I love the energy.
Positive energy is always welcome in the boardroom. Okay, let's start with the canine dog search.
Okay, so this is just a follow-up on the communication previously provided. As you're aware, at, I believe, the end of last year, I put out some information on the district's capability to have dogs come in and do searches in school. And specifically that the superintendent has that authority to do. So I wanted to put that in front of the board, just so you were aware of the intention or my intention to do that. So this year we are going to do it, as I said from last year, that was what we were hoping to do. This year we will. So in cooperation with the Connecticut State Police and the Tolland Resident Trooper Office, we'll be doing at least one dog search in the Tolland Public School grounds this year. So it's going to, probably be middle school, high school, probably, and you can know it's going to be high school, to start at least. And so we're going to do at least one of them. And in this case, they're not using the canine German Shepherds or things, those dogs, I know people sometimes worry about them and they look aggressive. These dogs are, are search dogs. So they are not the big canine German Shepherds people generally have in mind. These are, I forget the breed, but they kind of black lab type looking dogs to me. And they come through. We will have a secure building generally, and the state troopers, state police go through with the dogs. And if it turns up anything that shouldn't be there, then we immediately meet with the student and, call the parents and, proceed to engage the family and try to resolve the issue. So they will be used in the parking lots and they will be used in the school's internal locker areas as well. So we don't announce ahead of time when they're going to be for obvious reasons, but there'll be at least one, and I'll be looking to do more than that. So, but not so, not disrupt the school environment. We will be very careful not to. Just as an aside, they'll generally happen while kids are in class. So a secure building means that you can still continue instruction. We would do a secure building to keep people out of the hallways. So instruction would continue as normal. Most students really won't see any disruption whatsoever. Because we'll be able to go through, they'll be able to go through within a typical period.
Any more questions about this? Pretty straightforward. Okay, thank you for the update. Let's go do the WFRs.
Okay, so in the process of the year, and I had put this in a discussion with FFC as well. There are certain situations that arise, and they are typically, and in this case, in special education, where we do have to engage or hire additional staff that is outside of what we had talked about explicitly in the budget. So I'm sorry, this jumped around a little bit. Let me get that. So in order to make sure that everybody knows what's going on, we brought it up in FFC and then moved it over to board so that you could all, make sure you're well informed. So one of the positions is a job coach that is going to be, instead of contractual services, because we couldn't find anyone who is able to do that contractually, and that happens in this particular position. Sometimes it fluctuates and there's no one available. These coaches work for the Tolland Transition Academy in Lee. There are kids who are 18 to 22 years old, and it is one of the required things that you need to do with kids, that kind of job coaching. And so if there isn't any contractual support available, you have to fill that one way or another. So typically then we'll hire an individual contract employee, non-union employee, in most cases, to take care of it. 0.12 FTE special education, because the grant ended. So then we transition that portion of that special ed over to operating budget. 0.2 speech pathologist. Again, this is based on contractual service needs. And so when an IEP requires that a service be provided, if we don't have enough people to do that, we would then have to, either add an FTE to someone existing or, bring in someone else or bring in consulting. In this case, that 0.2 is adding a 0.2 onto an existing speech and language person. And so that would be, that's how we cover that. That constitutes adding a 0.2 FTE. And then a 1.0 social worker. The good news here is that is not going to be incurred by our operating budget. That has to do with the ARPA grant that I wrote. It was a competitive grant. So we got that for this year, next year, and the year after. So the next 2 years, it's 100% covered. And in the last year, it's mostly covered, up to about 90% of it will be covered. So that's the good news end on this is, while we have a couple positions we had to, or FTEs we had to add in order to cover special education needs and IP needs, student service needs. We also are getting a position entirely from grant. It is social worker. We need it badly, and we won't have an impact on our budget for at least a few years. So that's what would affect our numbers in the next couple of weeks. And as any other ones come up, I'll try to bring this up through to keep everybody informed. So the reason I call it the WFPAs or whatever, it's basically within fiscal year edition. I was trying to think of a way to make sure the board was aware of these as they happened. And so this seems like it's an effective way of doing that.
Okay, any board questions? Thanks, none. Thank you. Enrollment report.
Okay, so we have an early enrollment report here. So this is the earliest one I think I've ever done. Normally we don't do these. I don't take a snapshot this early because we have a process that we will follow on it. And typically I like to try to wait until we have the projections from this. And I also typically wait until we have the state snapshot, because there is a moment in time we take a snapshot that we send to the state. So these numbers may not match whatever the state snapshot is, because obviously it's before that. So I wanted to give you some of these to give you a sense of where it's at. For board members and anyone in the public, you can go to either of those links and you can find this report publicly posted. Keep in mind, here, I'll push on this so you can kind of see what it's got. So you'll notice that on the ones that I typically do after we have all the information, I'll have more information about the higher level schools, grades 6 through 12, because that can change a bit. And so you have an overall view of all of the schools from a, oops, I can't blow it up much bigger than that, but you have an overall view of the schools over the last couple of years, grabbing 4 years experience, including this year. And then you have, and you have that all the way through all the grades. When I do this updated report, I'll break it out even more detail and do kind of overall class sizes for TMS, overall class sizes for THS, and all of that. But right now, I just have the overall enrollment numbers and the old projections from NESDEC from the past. So included in it as well is the class sizes for the pre-K 2 group, which is BGP, and the grades 3 through 5 group. So in all of that, you should get a pretty good idea of kind of where things are. A couple things to note: the state of Connecticut through NESDEC was projected in last year's projections, and it'll probably be the same as this year. Overall, between 2020 and 2030, schools overall are going down by about 6.5% in their enrollment. And so that's a trend in the entire state. And that NESDEC figure is one that, I'll publish in the final report. But in last year, 2022, that last projection was that enrollment across the state of Connecticut for education is going down 6.5%. So we can generally expect to see some enrollment decline in this district, as I've noted with you in the past when I've given these reports. But we are going to bottom out and start heading back upwards. So each of the reports that we've got, sometimes it fluctuates from year to year on the exact number, but we are going to edge down towards that figure of about 2,100 or 2,000 something, and then we are rising back up again. And that's because we had big classes, moving through a while back, and they went up to the high school level. Those are leaving, and the classes coming in the pre-K 2 level and even pre-K to 5 level are getting bigger. So the ones coming in are going to be a little bit bigger for each year, which will add up. The ones going out, are going to, eventually kind of balance it. They're not going to be, they're going to be around that 170 to 190, and mostly in that even 60 zone in the higher place. So we'll see that pre-K 5 enrollment will go up, and that'll eventually spread out throughout all the grades. And so it looks like we're never really going to get any lower than about 2,000, and we'll eventually climb back upwards, but it's hard to project exactly how high. I'll wait to the NESDEC projections before sharing that, because I want to rely more on them than just throwing out a random number. But in the past, you're going back up by a couple hundred again, and you'll stabilize after about 5 to 10 years at a couple hundred higher than where you are now. So that's the overall kind of helicopter view, that in the pre-K 5 zone, you're going up. In the older grades, the bigger ones are going out. So we had a class of about 193, for instance, go out. We had a K class, which follows the projection pretty closely, of about 140 come in. Those projections kind of vacillate up and down. You may note that last year, there was a projection that we were going to have about 183, 184 in a class. And it was so much higher than the previous year. Even I kind of doubted that number, but that number came true. And the projection actually fell right about in that zone. So the projections seem to be pretty accurate with respect to, the numbers getting higher. So we can expect, as you can see even on this, that in the next few years, K is going to kind of rise up a bit from that 140 to, say, the 170s. Same thing with 1. You're going to see the younger grades rise, and that does follow what they're saying. So where we're at now kind of represents where we expect it to be. I think in 2021, NESDEC actually projected us a little bit lower than the number we're at right now. So we're right about in the range where we'd expect to be. And if you have a class like 193 going out and 140 coming in, that's 53 right there. And if you consider that there's, a negative 6.8 trend over the state of Connecticut, ours is a little lower than that actually for a drop. And eventually in the next 2 to 3 years, you're headed back upwards. So that's the general overview. And then looking at the class sizes, you can kind of see that your pre-K 5 group, that I think most people, that was where most of the questions were coming in, at least the questions that I experienced at the time. So if you take a look at it, pre-K 2, they fall about where you'd expect them to fall. Kindergarten has to be less than 20. The state of Connecticut requires that. But where we start to edge up is grades 3, 4, and 5. You can see them getting a little bit big. And then as you get to grade 5, we have, you know, some significant number of classes that are at 25. And that's, you know, that happens when we have fluctuations, the kids moving in at different ages and levels. You know, we have a certain number of teachers in each of the schools and grades. It also has to do with our certifications and some of the requirements in other areas. Most teachers are either 612 certified, or pre-K to 5, you know, in those zones. So you can't use a certified teacher at the 612 zone that, you know, in the pre-K 5 zone. So we don't have as much flexibility as, you know, as we would like to have. But what we'll hope to do in the next, you know, couple cycles here is try to get those numbers down in 5th grade in particular, because that's the grade that's most challenged right now. And we ought to make some adjustments, obviously, going forward in there. So this is an early snapshot, and probably in the next month, I can give you an updated one. I'm thinking by the end of October, early November, I can give you the more extensive report. And then generally what I do is I update that report in February. That's been the trend that typically occurs for us.
I did have a couple of quick questions because I know with the state of Connecticut, they changed the pre-K for the 2024 or the next year.
Yeah.
For the kindergarten, not kindergarten, but preschool age. How is that going to impact? Do we have a lot of like fur babies?
It's hard to say right now. I think it's probably going to increase it a bit. You also have, when you have the feeder preschool programs. And if we're going to do that with K, we probably need to be consistent with what the age, when the age threshold date is for pre-K. And we do have more kids that are going to get looped into that pre-K loop. So the pre-K numbers are going to go up. And that will in turn probably push more kids in the pipeline into K, you know, and so I expect those to go up. And you also have potentially kind of these new things getting thrown in that weren't part of the projections, the Santini, you know, apartments and things like that. NESDEC wasn't, that's not computed, taking into account some of the new opportunities to live in Tallinn that people will have. So, you know, that's the numbers we have aren't really even taking into account some of those dynamics. In the curriculum meeting today, we talked about the overall kind of trending of some of the kids and, you know, where they're going and so on. And, you know, it's pretty, from what I see right now, it's a pretty standard, you know, predictable number. I'm going to go back even further in history and, you know, we'll put it on the agenda planning for the board, and that can be a special, you know, board agenda item. I think Mr. Maury had wanted to move that to the board overall. So we'll be able to kind of report on, you know, on that piece of it as well, so people can get an idea of where people are going and what the trend is over the last few years. But it is generally falling in, you know, explainable and predictable patterns. And so I think we're going to see more. We're going to see more, even more than what we have projected to increase. We're going to get even more than that once the apartments open and once we need, you know, that change in acceptance date required by the state goes into effect, which will be next year.
Okay, that ties into my next kind of question with the homeschooling versus, you know, how many go to Cheney, Rockville, and E.O. Smith, things of that nature. You know, I think they think once they're out of our district, we don't pay for that, but, you know, they need to understand that our tax money still goes to whatever school that they are choosing to go to. Because they think that, oh, these students are not in our school district anymore, like we don't need to get funds for them. But really, in reality, it ties with the student wherever they end up going. So I think that was a clarification that, you know, social media, stuff that's out there for transparency purposes of what happens. Go ahead.
So I just wanted to say, as I look at this enrollment report, so I feel like for the last 4 years or so, there's a narrative that our enrollment is going down, and therefore, why do we have the budgets that we do? So I just want to make sure that everybody who's on tonight, we've got a very highly participated meeting tonight, please pay attention to the class sizes you've got here. So I'm going to speak from someone who is a parent to 2 children, one in the middle school, one in the high school, and also someone who has spent significant time in classrooms over the years. And I'm betting that other who spend significant time in classroom will view it the same way as I do. These numbers are too high. In kindergarten, we should be more around 15. In the early grades, we're going up to 22 in grade 2. That's too much. We should be somewhere around 18. Same with 3rd, 4th, and 5th. It's too much. We've looked at studies in the past here in the boardroom that Dr. Wilt has shown that show the kinds of numbers that are the most beneficial for our students and our teachers. These are higher than those. Secondly, I have a son in the high school. He's and I just had parents' night last week, as the girl said, and something that his math teacher, intermediate math, college prep, a class that I believe is partially designed for bridging the gap with students who do have trouble between Algebra 1 and Algebra 2, which my son does. There's 26 students in that class. The teacher tries to get to every student at least once in that class. Now, I don't know if anyone's students have ever struggled with math or you've struggled with math, but a lot of times that's not enough. Thankfully, my son has the capability to stay after school several times per week. I'm guessing a lot of other parents are working and their children don't have the capability to spend several days after school per week. So, you know, when we talk about enrollment and people throw out figures and things that are going down, and again, we see that narrative wherever it may be, social media or elsewhere, please come back to the class sizes. We do not have small class sizes.
Yeah, I'm sorry if you missed it, but I know we looked at our enrollment report when we do the budget in January. Do you know what the change is from that report to this one? Particularly for this year.
Yeah, there was one in, I think early, there was one in October and one in February.
Yeah, it's probably February.
Yeah, so, off the top of my head, I'm not sure. And you're looking at probably 50 to 60, something like that. But again, the problem is we're not talking apples to apples here. The time that we actually can compare it would probably be from February to February. Because for instance, last year when we started, we gained 20 kids in the span, 20 or whatever, you know, about 20 in the span of the beginning of the year to about the February period, we picked up 20 children.
Okay.
So the problem with doing snapshots at different times, I respect, it's good to talk about it whenever you want to talk about it. But we're not doing apples to apples here, so we have to be careful. I would say our best shot at having the apples to apples would be February, because that's the figure.
Okay, I'm curious because, just to kind of see how forecasts compare to actuals, you know, particularly for the school year that just started. Okay, yeah, I guess, I'll just say for my own, thoughts, I think it's good to look at forecasts that go out a few years, but like, I get very tough just thinking, more than like 5 years in the future personally, just because, it's kind of like people making predictions about like what the economy is going to look like in 6, 7, like you can't, it's just too far out, but it's always helpful to have this information, at least for the next few years. Thank you.
Sure. And I usually do 5-year chunks.
Yeah.
When I do the enrollment report, even though I have 10 years, I usually will put 5 years of information in there. The hard part about this is actually, this projection is old. Our new projections will be coming in a month or two, and that's when we can really, you get a good idea of what they're saying.
So you have to excuse me, I didn't have my notebook at work during our curriculum meeting, so I've got, when you work in a school, you work with your sticky notes. And so during our curriculum meeting, we actually went over a lot of this topic. And, sort of discussion about, why are we seeing, I think the number thrown out there was like 87, 87 fewer students than the previous year. And why are we paying for that? Well, and I think Ashley, you made a good point. It's more expensive to outplace them than it is to have them here. That's number one. But for example, homeschool requests. The trend line we reviewed today, just today, a few hours ago, shows that trend line of homeschooling is going down. The peak of that trend line within the last 5 years, and I know 2019 was a little wonky. Within the last 5 years, that peak was at during COVID, the peak of COVID. Since then, it's continued to go back down. And so last year it was 12, this year it's 10. And so again, it's not as if it's going up every year. Since COVID, it's going down. Students seeking alternative schools is also going back down. There's also unfinalized numbers within that, but sort of the general average from what we discussed earlier, you're looking at 70, 71, 72 students on average that are going to different schools year by year. And that once again peaked during COVID at 90, it might have been 91 or 92 or whatever.
During the height of COVID, it was peaking.
Right. And then every other year, it has remained rather consistent. It's been 71, 91 during COVID, 72, 71, whatever it is. And so the numbers we're seeing right now aren't necessarily new. This has been, again, a trend line leading to this. And so we have to ask ourselves, how did we get here? I think that's the more important question. And so I just wanted to clarify that because, and I would also recommend everybody who's on this meeting tonight, once that curriculum meeting gets posted, wherever you can watch it, I do recommend watching it because we did cover a lot of that stuff today. And I think Dr. Willett clarified a lot of the points that were sort of being, thrown on darts out there. And, it helped me and hopefully it helps you. So thank you. That's all.
Anyone else? Okay. Let's just move on to community and liaison reports. Obviously curriculum was today.
With my report. So it's a good segue from what they were saying. It's good. Yeah, it was a very productive meeting. We started out talking a little bit about unstructured time initiatives. It sounds like some of the stuff that the district was working with Human Services has kind of been put on hold because there's been some turnover from that department, but the district's making some good progress working with the scouts and doing what it can internally to kind of incorporate that for the younger grades, which I think is good. Additionally, we had a very good discussion about homeschooling and just kids leaving the district in general and how better to respond to that. I think that's definitely warrants a full board discussion. I know there's some interest stuff in it as well, so I'd love to have that on the agenda. Just the highlights though for tonight. We talked about creating a potential short exit survey for students leaving the district that could provide us perhaps with some useful feedback as to why people are leaving, see if there's anything that we might be able to implement as process improvements, or at least give us a little bit more data to work with. Additionally, we looked at some just statistics about how many people are choosing to homeschool. Again, the executive summary there was before COVID, it was low single digits. 2021, it got up to about 40 students, and then it's gone down a little bit higher than pre-COVID, but significantly lower than what it was in 2021.
And lower than the last 2 years.
Yeah, it's more like around 10. Additionally, we had a discussion about curriculum and textbook changes. Not a whole lot coming down the pipe. There was kind of a course modification, I guess, to create kind of an advanced level pottery course. I assume that the high school, should I maybe ask what school it was? I assume the high school though.
Well, actually, you're talking the book?
No, the
course is high school.
Yes. So that was a course change, and then 7th grade geography textbook got updated. The ones the district were currently using were well out of date, so it was just kind of a necessary textbook change that needed to be made. But other than that, there hasn't been any changes. Not a whole lot coming down or immediately coming down the pipe. There's I think we mentioned this a few months ago. The state has mandated a number of new course topics that need to be covered, but there really hasn't articulated in any detail as to what that encompasses. So we're kind of waiting to see what they say. So at the moment, there isn't a whole lot of course changes. And then finally, we did talk about student performance and attendance. So it looks like the SPAC scores are coming in good, it's comparatively, we're seeing some improvement year over year. And that should all be updated up in the portal, data portal, which board members can look at and I believe residents can look at as well. And additionally, the district is still working on the attendance issue that we've had with a large number of students, unfortunately, especially the younger grades. They're being chronically absent. So the district's working on putting together, so some staff specifically help deal with that challenge. So yeah, it was quite a packed hour, but that's what we discussed.
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
A clarifying question. Is it 10 families that are homeschooling or is it 10 students?
So it's 10 students,
10
but that can
students.
mean that if you had 3 students, you're counted as part of the 10 in a family.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if you took all 3 kids from, let's say, my family, that would count as 3. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's why I was wondering if it were 10.
so that can fluctuate just based on family size and family decision. But yeah, it has gone down for each of the last 3 years, and it spiked as Mr. Ari said, it spiked during the mid of the pandemic. But we're returning to the numbers we have in the past. And we're lower than last year and lower than the year before.
Okay. Any other questions for curriculum? Okay. Let's see, policy, did you meet? I don't believe you met.
No, we did not. We were scheduled to meet this week, but unfortunately I brought a nice little cold back from my vacation with me and we had to cancel, but my apologies.
Assuming. Okay, negotiations, we can say we.
Teacher negotiations have wrapped up.
So you'll see that coming to the board at some point once they ratify, and we can do that. Okay, FFC,
Yes, we met last week. We talked about our budget balance to date, which is, pretty much on target for this time of year. We still have a lot we're gonna expense and encumber. We talked about the Appendix F for the fiscal year 24 budget, just to see which line items specifically were decreased due to the final number being approved at referendum. And we talked about health insurance, and unfortunately, those numbers are still trending pretty high. So we haven't looked at it, I think, since March, but there really has not been a significant decrease. So we're just going to have to keep an eye on that. And then we also talked about the USIF fund, and we're going to look to have a discussion with the council at some point to go back to kind of our question where if we save money and we're putting it into the fund, what happens when our operating expenses related to energy go over? Are we allowed to use some of the savings to offset that increase rather than having to find other savings within our operating budget? So that is something I believe Dr. Willett was going to talk to you, Ashley, about setting something up to get that ball rolling. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions on any of those? And then communication.
Yep, for our communications, we actually had a short meeting this week, and Dr. Willett and I discussed some upcoming student interest interviews that we're looking to do. Really excited about that. Talked about doing some things with our students, various things depending on the school and obviously the age, but just positivity and showing off our best assets, which are our students, and bringing them into the mix. So as we figure out the logistics and how best to do that and support our students and teachers while we do that, we'll let you know if we can get this. I can give a PTO update.
Yeah, I would say, I don't know if it was your school office posted about the half-day release the day before. I think that was a very nice step in the right directions of notifying and not being hidden in a digital backpack. So keep up the good work. Go ahead.
So for Tepto, they have revised the excuse pads and they have new magnets that feature the school calendar that are for sale. Mileage Club is returning to both of the schools, which is really exciting. The Cider Mill Road Race is this weekend and there is school staff representation from BGP, TIS, and TMS. The Lyman Pie and Castle fundraiser are currently running. October staff appreciation for Birch Grove is October 6th and TIS staff appreciation is October 24th. So please look for a sign-up sheet to contribute to both of those. The book fairs are upcoming as well. The TIS one is the first week of November. It aligns with conferences. The Birch Grove one is the first week of December, which is in alignment with the Frosty Fest. So stay tuned for signups for those as well. They are doing a new community event called Trail of Treats. It is going to be Saturday, October 21st with a rain date of Sunday, October 21st at Crandon Park. TMS, there's growing participation for the PTO, which is very great there. They're bringing back the book fair to TMS. They're planning a staff appreciation for December. They're looking to assist with beautification around the school in alignment with the principal's ideas, and they're looking into new fundraising ideas. Booster Club had a very successful Eagle Scramble this past weekend in spite of the rain. Lots of community support through sponsorships, raffles, and golfers. Many were Talon High School graduates through the years. Approximately 8 current high school students volunteered throughout the day, with 2 playing in the tournament. There were also several TPS staff members that played in the tournament as well. Those proceeds are split between THS boosters and Project Graduation. Speaking of Project Graduation, they will have their first planning meeting in October and are always looking for volunteers. And then on October 29th, the boosters is collaborating with the Talon Friends of Music to put on a Rocktober festival at the spot. There will be 5 bands, 2 of which are student bands with THS members, and it's going to be $10 admission for adults and $5 for students.
A lot going on.
There is a lot. It's the beginning of the year.
I do have to think that, I think you said for the Trail
of Treats.
The Trail of Treats, I think you said the rain date was October 21st, but it's Sunday, the October.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. I said the same date.
Okay.
So it's October 21st, rain date the 22nd.
And then I had a quick question. In Manchester at the middle school, they have a beautification club. Is this something that has been, is there like a club that they could form with the kids or something to get, I don't know.
I don't know. I think that's a great suggestion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know a lot of the beautification spots around the schools are sponsored.
Oh,
You know, sometimes it's local companies, sometimes the PTO has them. I haven't really walked the TMS grounds often to see if those are sponsored, but even the ones that are sponsored, they need a little love and care sometimes, so. But yeah, great idea.
Okay, any further questions on any of this? I think I got everybody, so. Okay, we can just go right into the board action for L1, para contract.
okay.
I mean, I don't know if you would like to start us off, since.
I like when Dr. Willett starts with the numbers up on the screen.
It's raining to cooperate.
I do apologize again. I wasn't at the last
That's
meeting
all
due to an accident at my home that day, but I did watch the video, so I did watch your explanation and short discussion around the first read.
All right, I'm gonna try to get this to scroll. I'm sorry. If not, I have another way of getting to it.
I think you had it at one point. And then
It's just, I scroll and it doesn't move. So I'm just trying to get it to there. All right, so, as you know, this is the second read of the paraprofessional contract. It was done, the committee did a great job with it. It was done in good faith with the paraprofessionals. The paraprofessionals are still for talent. If you look at, basically where they fall, they're modestly compensated compared to the districts around us, or they're in the kind of the 50th percentile or lower. So they, Tolland, to be competitive, needed to do something to kind of get the paras into a competitive, or what we pay paras into a competitive place, to make sure that, we don't have attrition and that the paras feel valued for the work that they do. So this agreement does do some of that. It's not at all an unreasonable thing for Tolland. It puts the paraprofessionals more solidly in the halfway point of the DIRG. It doesn't put them super high in the DIRG, so it's not unreasonable, and they're not going way up to the top, but they're also not going to be at the bottom either. So it's a competitive wage, and it is it's arrived upon in a very comprehensive manner. So these have been gone. We went over these mostly at the last meeting, but if you want to go down to wages, it's approximately 4% that first year, doing steps 4 through 12, and then it's a 2% for all steps in the next 2 years after that. It's a 3-year contract. And again, they've done a couple stipend ads too to help the people that are doing work in specific areas to be recognized for that work appropriately with the stipend that they receive. And so because this is a contract that brings us to more the center of the group, and because it does a good job of recognizing the paras with respect to the stipends they do and the special jobs they do, and it was arrived on in good faith. This is a very good deal for Tolland overall. And in order to be competitive, we really do need this contract to go through. As you can tell right now, in the state of Connecticut, it's very hard for school districts to keep staff in general, and not having a competitive wage for paras really hurts that. So it's not it's important to recognize the hard work they do, provide them a competitive wage, so they feel valued, and it'll have an overall benefit of our district of helping us keep the paras we've got, and to retain the new paras as they come in, and hire more people, so we can get back to a full staff situation, and this will help us do that.
Okay, so before we do questions. So thank you, Dr. Willett, for going over the numbers. I think in questions, we can do some more specific if the board would like to question some of these items, but I would like to provide a dialogue, as I do, to ensure that we understand at least somewhat of the rules that we're voting on tonight. So it would take me probably an hour to discuss all the roles and responsibilities that our various paras provide our students. And I'm not sure that even that would cover it, but I'm going to highlight some of what their roles are. So general education paras assist students in mainstream classrooms. They work with individuals in small groups to help reinforce a teacher's lesson. They implement and monitor behavior modification systems and techniques. They learn computer skills and assistive technology as needed. They supervise small groups in taking tests and doing makeup work. They administer curriculum-based checklists, provide limited supervision of a class, supervise some of our busiest chaotic times of the school day, such as lunch, recess, and assist with field trip supervision. They help maintain homeschool communication. For example, they ensure a student is filling out an agenda and bringing items home to their parents' attention. They help the teacher prep materials. They assist with life skills implementation. We have literacy paras who are responsible for lesson plans, assigning and assessing homework, being up to date on training and phonemic instruction, assessing reading abilities, writing, planning, and facilitating guided reading groups, administering remedial lessons under a teacher's guidance, tracking student progress, and reporting it to teachers. We have special ed paras who are doing everything I just mentioned above, as well as collecting data towards behavior plans, implementing teacher modifications for class activities, or conducting alternate activities in accordance to a student's IEP. We have preschool paraprofessionals that are assisting students to buses and vans, reinforcing instruction, prepping materials, charting a child's progress as it applies to their IEP, assisting with the physical needs of disabled children, preparing snacks, assisting with cleanliness and disinfecting of classrooms and the playground, supervising children during conferences and placement meetings. We have one-on-one parents who do every single thing I've said above and more as they work one-on-one with our most vulnerable population. We have parents who assist with hygiene, who are helping with diaper and pull-up changing, even in the older grades, menstrual cycle needs of older children, toilet and toilet training, feeding or supporting feeding programs or devices. So having said all that, and again, I've barely scratched the surface, let's mention some of the most important things our paras do for our students every day. Paras are the hearts of our schools. They truly support the emotional and social well-being of our students every single day. They facilitate social interactions for our students, many of whom struggle to do so themselves. They help students resolve conflicts. They can act as a liaison between students and teachers, making sure that teachers are aware of all critical information. They can be a liaison with parents in directing their concerns to teachers. So I can't discuss the specifics of what happens inside negotiation meetings, but what I can say is this, and I take this from my own experience in the schools, watching paras interact with both special needs and general education students. And as a parent of a student who has utilized paras in both general and special education, and as chair of our negotiations committee. Our paras are fiercely passionate about their job, and their job is our students. They perform their responsibilities with their whole hearts. They are the first people in every single situation to go above and beyond their duties to help a child in need. Our students love them and trust them and need them. Our paras are due to do a great deal of respect, and they are due a fair and equitable income. At our starting wage before negotiations, our paras were making less than what students they support make working at Big Y. I can say this because my son works at Big Y, and I can guarantee you that the skills our paras possess and the responsibilities they undertake are light years beyond what my son is expected to do in his part-time job as a high school student. I asked my son what working with our paras has meant to him, and he gave me his permission to share. His first sentence was, "I couldn't have done any of this without the help of paras." More specifically, his own words are, "They are always kind. They are a second trusted figure in the classroom. They are sometimes more approachable than the teacher if they are busy or working with other students. They are always available to help you or point you in the right direction for help. They know you. They know when you need extra support or an extra check-in to help you succeed in every class every day." And lastly, I just want to point out that if this vote doesn't pass tonight, this will likely go straight to arbitration. And we will be paying more legal fees instead of putting those funds towards a fair and equitable wage for our staff. Question?
Follow up on that. Yeah, go ahead.
So. Couple of the details, so I know it says there are a couple added holidays up into the schedule. I was just kind of wondering how that works, Dr. Willett or Jen, because I know a number of the paras are part-time, so just kind of curious, and this may be just more of a broader question now, holidays are for like part-time staff, is that?
So you specifically want to know part-time paras, how they're receiving their holiday?
Well, like, is it just for full-time or is it like the part-time people? I'm just curious how that works.
Yeah, the day after Thanksgiving, I'd have to check, but it's probably prorated in some, form for somebody based on their FTE. Adding the day after Thanksgiving as a holiday just means that, they get compensated for that.
Yeah, no, I'm
So it'd be in proportion to their FTE, like.
That's what my understanding was when.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you get
I'll check.
comparable to what other contracts were?
I'll check on it though, that's a good question, I'll check on it, but that's what I'm thinking is it's in proportion.
I thought it was, but that was my understanding, walking the porterhouse.
That, I mean, I noticed that the stipend amount was more than double, but you're gonna like this, Jen. I think that makes a lot of sense, because they do some very, difficult jobs, so I think that's fair.
And the reality of that is just, it's hard to get,
Yeah.
it's hard to get people to do some of those positions. So that again was about making us more competitive to get
Yeah.
good help in to help with those specific needs.
Mhm. Yeah, so I know that it all makes good sense. We have, or at least we still do have a number of vacancies for paras, I believe. Yeah. Yeah, other than that, I don't have any other questions. It seems pretty straightforward. Yeah. I know I always ask questions, but I just have to whenever I vote on something, so.
Of course,
Yeah. No,
due diligence.
good.
Okay, any further questions? Because then if not, then I will entertain the motion that is written below. Any other further questions?
I just have a couple of things. First of all, Jen, thanks for the thorough synopsis of what you can share, because I understand that it's being on the negotiations committee in the past, it's not an easy task by any stretch, and then it's not an easy task to communicate to the board, you know, how we got to where we got to, how the team got to, I should say. I definitely think that, you know, it's tough because minimum wage in Connecticut is a pretty decent wage, you know, compared to when minimum wage was, you know, when I was working minimum wage, I think it was like $5 an hour. And our paraeducators, like you said, are next to Big Y wages or McDonald's wages or Taco Bell wages and different things like that, and everything they're bringing to the table. So I was really excited to see the stipend amounts for the hygiene services, ABA training services, that increased. I think it's really important. The PMT training stipend was fantastic. And the class coverage, $8 for that. I think that's fantastic as well. I think we really kind of tried to hit on all points to make this a more the whole benefits package, if you will. It's not necessarily just the hourly wage. It's the medical, the dental, the vision, the stipends, the other perks. So I definitely think that the team really looked at all avenues of that to try to make it a more equitable position and, you know, and competitive based on other districts. You know that there was a lot of late nights, very late nights. So I'm appreciative of the team and doing the work and working with the para group to find a common ground to ensure that we can continue to maintain and retain a lot of our strong paras in school. I can tell you that, you know, just listening to what you said from your son, it's pretty amazing the impact that not only our educators, but our paraeducators and our administrative staff have on our students. And I think we have to really look when we talk about families homeschooling or why our kids' families leaving or different things like that. And it kind of encompasses on, are we bringing in the right, are we supporting our staff, getting the strong staff in there, getting our staff the right PD that they need, you know, being competitive with that aspect, along with many other aspects, you know, why our classes are so large and all those kind of things. So in order for us to continue to have TPS thrive, we really need to make sure that we're not only supporting our students, but we're supporting our staff and administrative staff and educational staff. So I think that you did that here. I think you simply, you know, I'm sorry, I'm gonna mix it up, Ashley, but I think you did a great job. The team did a great job and I'm really supportive of this. So thank you.
Any further questions?
Sure. Just a little story time. Just today, one of my students got to me after school and named Caleb, and he's very, very upset. Like, I don't know what's going on. Well, you know, you get to me and then, you know, I'm supposed to know. No, I don't. And, you know, a lady walks through the door about 30 seconds after, and she's explaining to me that, you know, I'm with Caleb all day, this and that, whatever. I thought this whole time, this is his teacher, this is a social worker, this is a principal, this is somebody in that room or in that building, or, you know, one of those top figures in the building. And sure enough, it was a para. It was a para in that building who had tracked him down, didn't know whether he was getting on the bus, going to our after school program, didn't know whether he was getting picked up. She tracked him down just to come report to me what happened in his day. And so I found it very, you know, coincidental that on all days when we're voting on this, that I experienced this, I think sort of for the first time in this adult, fashion, that parents are going above and beyond. And granted, we work for folks at Tolland and staff at Tolland and students of Tolland. And I think this needs to be a national discussion, but the work Jen and the committee did, by just seeing, sort of the face value of it, I know we've got a little more detail to review, but it really is a job well done, and you're representing some really awesome people. So thank you for doing that.
Excellent. Okay. Anyone online have anything to say prior to going to a vote? No? Okay. Let's go ahead. I will entertain the motion on here if somebody would like to make it.
Motion to accept the bargaining unit agreement between the Board of Education and the Town Perry Education Union, CSEA, SEIU, Local 2001, extending from July 1, 23 through June 30, 26.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Any further discussion? I should say. Okay, seeing none, we will do roll call vote. I'll start with you.
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
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 let's go to Griffin.
Aye.
Tony,
Aye.
that was a nay?
Aye. Yes.
Aye, thumbs up, okay. And then Ford.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well, therefore, this passes unanimously. I just wanted to say to the paras, thank you for being the valuable members of our school system. We couldn't do it without you. Hopefully we can regain some and other towns won't go scooping them up so quickly. It's a step in the right direction, how about that?
And I think, I think the reality is that the para educator job has grown and changed so much over the years, and they, I think people often thought a para was just there, as to assist and to make copies, but they have a true role. And, if you read some of the things we're doing here, they're asking for more training. They want to be the best at their jobs for our students, and that is what you want on your staff. So I like a lot of the smaller items that aren't necessarily wage items that are a part of the subcontract.
I agree, I think it was it's a good negotiations. Okay, let's move on to the capital budget.
So this is pretty much what you saw last time. The dishwasher replacement was submitted in the final inning there, the last kind of hours of last week. So I can't remember, but I think I put out an updated one with that one in it. So there's nothing really different for this item from last week other than that. I think that was just a late add. And so you have, any of these items that you don't want to move forward, now would be the time to ask for these to come off. I did get an update at late afternoon of the town's capital descriptions, but I didn't have time to scan them. So there's nothing that I think is different than what you already know, but I didn't have a chance to review what I received from the town this afternoon. But again, that may or may not have anything to do with this. It just looked like the narrative descriptions of what we had already requested in the past. So what might happen here is that these capital requests are not going to change because these are your requests. But how the bonding is done and where some of these things are funded on our timeline might change based on the information that came to me this afternoon. But, we had the curriculum meeting and a few other things and had a community forum. So I couldn't actually look at that. But I assume that what would change in it, if anything, would be the date, the years where some of these things are covered, not that any of them are, coming off or anything that is being added that you don't know. So for a point of clarification, nothing that's on here is, anything on here is basically what you were shown last week. It is what the board's request would be. And nothing on here has really changed, except maybe the dishwasher, but the dates, the years, some of the ones that are in progress, those may change based on whatever I received today. And I'll update that accordingly and I'll post it to the Board of Ed.
Can I just ask a quick question? When you have listing of the grants that, possible security grant reimbursement at, 49.64%, when about would you know when that grant would be coming through?
Well, you have to apply for it and then we've had very good luck with getting that because it's usually an expectation, on some projects that you're going to get. So we have generally gotten, that reimbursement on most of the projects. What happens though is the town can't count on it. So when it's financed, my understanding is they finance the full amount just in case. but generally we get those reimbursement rates.
So when the grant comes and the money goes back to the capital.
Yeah, and sometimes it's all timing. It all has to do with timing. Sometimes if it works out, whatever Lisa does for financing, you may be able to take that into account if the timing is right. Or she may just, may reduce the amount that they're bonding or whatever. That's why there's always adjustment. There tends to be adjustments over time with some of these things, and it changes a little. But what will not change is what you're requesting for this coming cycle unless you want it to. So those items on there are what you're requesting for this coming cycle unless you want me to take something off. What's in the spreadsheet, that piece could change based on where, where the town is financing these items.
Okay, so let's ask, any board members have any questions or comments about this?
We had a good conversation about an FFC, so I'm good.
You're good. And everyone else good? No, okay, seeing none. Okay, well then, we don't have a motion written on here.
Well, first, second read, and then it's just a motion to
I
accept.
thought it was a motion, yeah, we still have a motion to accept the capital budget items at the September 27th meeting.
I'll make Jacob Murray, I'll move to accept the capital budget changes up at the September 27th meeting and submit to the town.
Second.
Okay. So any further questions? Okay, we'll go ahead and do a roll. Do you have any questions, do you?
No.
For the capital? Okay, because we're gonna go ahead and go to the vote.
Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
Griffin,
Aye.
Tony,
Aye.
Lord?
Aye.
Thank you, Tony, for the 2 thumbs up. That's good. I as well, therefore, this passes as is. If you could submit this to the town by October 5th, that would be greatly appreciated. Okay. The bullying.
So these items now are L's, meaning they are action, this is your second read. I won't restate everything that we said in the first read, but basically it's an update of the bullying policy. We're updating it to the standard boilerplate of Shipman and Goodwin. Because there are very nuanced word changes in here, sometimes parsing through every word change is difficult. We just took the entire template, the entire recommended model, and just used it. One example of that would be that, bullying, instead of being defined as repeated, ends up being defined as persistent, pervasive. And so, these are some small word changes, but they are throughout the document. And so it's difficult sometimes to find them all. So that's why we did it this way, but this should update it to the latest model that Shipman has.
Okay. Any board members have any questions on this?
Not so much a question, I just wanted to commend the policy committee on, updating this. I think I'd written to Tony, a while back and he had told me that it was on the list, so thank you. Something as simple as the word change that I was actually gonna bring up, but Dr. Willett already did, is just so important. In bullying nowadays, that it doesn't need to be a repetitive action necessarily for it to be, considered bullying. Pervasive is just a strong word for a, I should have looked it up before I started speaking, but anyway, I'm happy that it is, we are now compliant and, great work. Thank you.
Any other comments before I entertain the motion, which is over here at the bottom? Any other comments? No, I will entertain the motion that's on here.
Jacob Murray, I move to approve the changes and updated policy 5081, bullying prevention and intervention.
Second.
Okay, any further questions? No? Okay, we'll do the roll call vote.
Aye.
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 Griffin,
Aye.
Tony,
Aye.
Laura?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. So once again, thank you very much for making these changes with the Shipman and Goodwin. And this passes as is. Thank you all for that work. Retention of electric records.
So, basically, this policy just takes us to, and gives an update to the modern language of how electronic records are processed these days. We have done a lot of work in this district to create, more of an electronic record keeping, working with the state, on how to do that, getting approval, to be able to, do electronic records rather than a lot of paper records. So a lot of progress has been made, and it's all in accordance with what's allowed now in the new language of the model policy. So if you just take a look at it, again, it's one of those policies that it's more or less better just to take as a whole copy over, because there's so many little nuanced changes and how they talk about backups and digital images and things like that. It's just better to take the whole thing. So we did that, we're making a lot of progress as a district, saving, a lot of paper, a lot of time for our people. And this was in accordance with making those changes and moving the district forward technologically for record keeping.
Okay, any board members have any questions in regards to the retention of electronic files?
I appreciate the conversations that we had, because they were very thorough, and you answered a lot of our questions through the whole process, Dr. Lawton. I think, you really. And Tony, thank you for leading the strong conversations. I appreciate it, because they're important topics.
Ashley, I'll just add to that, the frequently asked questions portion, there's a link here, extremely helpful as well. And so Dr. Willard was able, obviously, during our meeting, answer the questions, but all the resources that were provided for board members to sort of scour this, were very helpful. So again, credit to the policy committee, a job well done.
Okay. Well, then I will entertain the motion that's right here.
Jacob Murray moved to approve the changes and updated policy 4142, retention of electronic records and information.
Seconded.
Okay, any further discussion on this? Okay, seeing none, we'll vote. Go ahead, Jaden. Start us.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Griffin,
Aye.
Tony,
Aye.
Laura?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well, therefore this passes unanimously as well. Thank you very much. Let's go to the suspected abuse.
All right, so similarly, the 4100 policy update is, in this case, we were able to give, some highlights of the language changes because they're not quite as extensive. But again, it's just really updating the language to what Shipwin and Goodwin now uses. I think, for instance, there's references here, as I've described before, to agencies that didn't exist, or had changed names. So a lot of these changes are updating to the current social agencies that handle these matters. And also when they make references to certain exceptionalities, there's language updates with how now currently those exceptionalities are referred to. So that's really what's going on with this update is, it's just taking Shipwin and Goodwin's model again and updating it to the current language of what's used for the agencies, the exceptionalities, mandated reporter terminology, and how, timelines, all of that. So it's pretty straightforward, and it's definitely important for us to do.
Okay, any board members have any questions in regards to this policy?
I have a question about the wording of it. It specifies an age range 18 to 60. I get 18 because it's for adults, but why does it stop at 60?
I don't know why it stops at 16. I just took the language as is. It's a good question. I'll run the bases on it. I don't know why it stops at 16.
I just didn't know if that division of the autism spectrum, like that's.
Yeah.
Yeah, could it be related to, children with autism over 18, they usually have to, enter, they have a guardianship, right, for the rest of their lives. It's not,
Yeah, but like I get like over 18 because it's for adults, but like I just don't understand like the cutoff at 60.
Yeah, it's funny because we're a school system and we don't have any students that are 60. I don't think that question ever came up, but it's a good question.
Yeah.
And my only guess is that there is a different process for maybe someone. There's probably a different process for someone considered health. Yeah, the word elderly. Yeah.
Okay.
So that would probably be what's going on there, but frankly, that's boilerplate. I'll ask, because that's a good question. We've never had any students over 60, so we've never.
Well, I thought it was more in, like the way I read it was for like an adult who might be employed with the district with special needs,
Yeah, you're right.
potentially be harmed, but yeah, I mean, if there, I'm fine with it. I imagine if there is something that should be changed, it wouldn't be that complicated to fix, but I was just curious. Why stuff like that.
Well, even some
Yeah.
places do have within the spectrum of their districts, students who are that age, because you can have an adult student. For instance, I
Yeah,
used to work for an adult ed program, and certain towns have adult ed programs where you might have a student who's 60, or that might have a disability. We don't, but we need a policy on it anyway, just to have. We just don't have any students who fall in that category. So I don't, it's an excellent question. I'll run the bases on that.
okay. That was it.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, we can go ahead. I will entertain a motion listed below.
Motion to approve the changes in policy 4100 reports of suspected abuse and neglect of adults with an intellectual disability.
second.
Okay, once again, any further discussion on this? Okay, seeing none, we'll start off with Jaden.
Aye.
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 Griffin,
Aye.
Tony,
Aye.
Lord,
Aye.
I'm an aye as well, therefore this passes unanimously. And the last one for the transgender policy.
Okay, let me just check up. Okay, so policy 5700, and again, Chairperson Holt may want to make some comments on it too. As you recall, this was put up as a first read in the last meeting. Some adjustments were suggested, and those adjustments mostly were made with some modification because we reached out to the attorney. So for instance, Ms. Griffin had offered suggestions that were incorporated, but when we ran it by the attorney felt that we needed to have in that statement that to the extent permitted by law. So the district shall, to the extent permitted by law, include the parent or guardians in the process. So that is directly the result of our attorney from Shippen and Goodwin, reviewing it and saying, okay, well, these are the proposed changes, make sure you have that in there. And so that's why that's there. So there were thoughts shared, I think everything that was shared was incorporated, ran by the attorney, and then modified accordingly. And that's how we got to be where we are right now. And Ms. Griffin also suggested that we have the policy name in there, which was a good suggestion. We put that in. So there's a couple of places here where I think it's also been made more clear. And I think it's at this point reflects what the board and the policy committee had put forward in good faith. I don't know if Mr. Holt wants to comment on it.
Yeah, I absolutely do. And thank you, Dr. Willett, Madam Chair. I can say personally speaking that working on this policy has been an honor. I believe that this is something that is important, is something critical. And I don't know if you've noticed the trend in the policies that we've talked about today, but the committee's focus has always been, but particularly this term, in ensuring a safe and comfortable environment for all of our students to learn and to grow and to become themselves. When we decided, Dr. Willett and I, to bring this to the committee and start discussing that we sat down, we talked to the various groups, the LGBTQIA plus community, the parental rights community, the students, the parents. We tried to listen to everybody and put together a policy that primarily protected our students, gave them the opportunity to identify themselves and to grow and to learn, but also looked at the needs and the requests of everybody, the other groups, the stakeholders that were included. I think what came out through some absolutely amazing conversations in those committee meetings, Sophia, Dana, Dr. Willett, thank you to all the parents that communicated, that sent emails. I know, Jacob, you mentioned a couple of them in the correspondence report. I know personally I've received probably 30 or 40, that came just to me. Thank you all for the input. I think what you see in front of you is the absolute best amalgamation of all of those. I think it fulfills the need. It articulates what Tolland is trying to be for all of our kids, but also pays attention to, the important distinctions and the roles that parents play. So I fully stand behind this and thank you all.
No, thank you very much for the work on this. I do think it was crafted in such a way that it does include a lot of information, but it's stuff that we have a foundation now, to go through and build on this, because it's an ever fluid situation of how and what happens at the state level in terms of what goes on. So I think by having something, I like that. So thank you very much for the work on that. Griffin?
Thank you. I just had a couple questions. So since the new kind of verbiage came out the other day, I read it and reread it, and honestly, I think I'm a little more confused than I was before. So we've had a lot of people email us talking about the law. So I'm going to ask you two questions, Tony, and then maybe you can do it that way. So my first question is there actually a law about parent notification? Because that definitely seems to be the biggest concern that I'm hearing, is between all the emails we've gotten, is the parent notification. And my second question is our intent to say with this part of the privacy in this privacy section, is it our intent to say that parents will be notified of if their child tells a staff member that they want to change their gender identity? Because I think that's where I'm confused, because I thought that's what we were saying, but then it sounds like people did not think that was the case. So I'm trying to, I guess, figure out what is our intent when it comes to parent notification. And if our intent is to say that parents will be notified, why are we not just stating that? So those are my two questions, and where I'm confused and just kind of trying to wrap my head around all of this. Thank you.
So let me touch on that. Then, as always, Dr. Willett, please jump in, because we really, we really looked at that part of the policy very clearly, and going all the way back to when Attorney Ritter came and gave her presentation to the board. We went back and asked a couple of questions, because the state guidance, the laws that are in effect are ambiguous. There's nothing, at least from my perspective, that came out that said, do notify the parents or do not notify the parents. If you recall, as Attorney Ritter had mentioned, obviously in the perfect world, the intent is to include the family in as many of these conversations as absolutely possible. What we're trying to do here is articulate what the intent is from the district's perspective, that there are occasions when the school, by the mandated reporter, is required to notify authorities if they believe there is a risk to that child. So there are legal points where the school cannot just call the parent. The school has to go through some of these other avenues. What we're trying to say here is articulate what needed to happen, that the district is going to do everything it legally can to communicate with the parent. But if it runs into one of those cases, i.e. there's a belief that there's risk of harm to the child, then these are the things that the law requires them to do. That's why it comes across a little bit ambiguous in there, is we're trying to say there are occasions when we can't, and the law specifies those. Otherwise, the district will do everything it can to include the parents in those conversations. Dr. Willett, did you want to add anything to that?
Well, it sounds like Ms. Griffin has a follow-up question.
Okay, so I guess my question would be then, can we say exactly what you just said? Can we say that parents will be notified if their child tells a staff member? However, there are situations where if there's a reasonable cause to believe that a child is at risk of harm, et cetera, et cetera. I feel like there's too much ambiguous wording in here, and just based on what people were writing into us saying that they believe, they interpreted this as, I would just like it to be as clear as possible so there's not so many different views of what the policy is saying. I guess that's kind of where I'm coming from. I just would like it to be more clear.
And I guess, I recognize what you're saying, but if we look at that area that's highlighted in, what is that, like a teal color, the bluish color there, I think that does say exactly what you're saying there, that the district shall, again, there's to the extent permitted by law that Dr. Willett mentioned earlier, include the parents and guardians in the process. And then in situations, jumping down, in situations where there is a reasonable cause, so there's the clause that says when we won't. But I think we do exactly what you're asking right there in that color.
Then I guess my next question would be, can we elaborate? What is this process you're referring to? What is the process? So if we're not specifically going to say that we're going to inform or notify parents if their child wants to identify as a different gender, is the process where we're basically saying that's where we're going to notify people? Or that, do you know what I'm saying?
So the process is articulated in the guidelines that are required by the state of Connecticut, that we've covered in a series of meetings. But it is understandably hard sometimes to pull all these things together. 5700 is a comprehensive document, well done by the board to try to cover the bases. A policy can speak to things generally, and then you have the implementation piece of it. The guidelines for the staff that, as I've said many times before, are basically a restating of the state of Connecticut's requirements for us, talk about some of the process. And for us, Title IX coordinators are major players in that, because they, we're a smaller district, and their role is to work with the family and to work with the child and make sure that the best outcome occurs, so that the family is supported in the process and the child is supported in the process. Now, the language we're given here is the language we were given by the attorney. If we change this language, we're going against the advisement of the attorney at this point. So I realize, some of it can be a little hard to parse, but in those guidelines is how we reach out to families. And it's generally through our Title IX people. And it has to take into account all of the circumstances around the situation, including if there's any reasonable cause to believe that a child would be hurt, et cetera, et cetera. So the policy also is written in a way that, and the attorney suggests language that will cover you no matter what happens in the state of Connecticut. So in the state, they are talking about providing new guidelines and requirements that will be the 2023 version of the 2017 documentation. And so by saying that the district will, to the extent permitted by law, adhere to those things, that gives this document some life and flexibility when and if the state releases new guidelines to specify something differently than the way they've done it now. So I'm pretty sure that's why the attorneys put that in there, was to make sure our district is protected, from a liability standpoint, if not anything else, that it's following the laws and following the requirements. And when they do talk about law, attorneys do get, it does get a little interesting. The Shipman and Goodman presentation that was given to the board, I think on July 26th, talked about how they also look to, case law, like what's happening. And then they advise the district based on, what the cases, the resolution of those cases were. Because the Office of Civil Rights will base some of its actions and decisions on, some of the cases and what's happening. So the attorney will advise the district based on, what's been precedent setting or what is happening right now in civil rights challenges. And so I think that's also what's going on here too, is just to make sure that it protects the board in that you're not saying that, you're going to shall do something, that isn't something that the state of Connecticut or federal government permits.
Well, and just something to add in there, that my confidence in not saying anything against the hardworking people that are working in the state level, but my confidence that the 2023 guidelines are going to be released anytime in 2023 is low. So what we're trying to do here is, at least within the ambiguity that exists in to Dr. Willett's point, cases that are working their way through various state legislature or state judicial branches on both sides, to try to set a position that again protects the student, protects the family, protects the district, and creates that welcoming, compassionate environment that we're trying to do.
No, I totally understand all that. And I think, as you said, that's the bottom line. That's what we're trying to do. I'm just still torn on this policy because I feel like, and honestly, it was just in the last 2 days when we got all those emails, because I could see that everybody interpreted this completely different. So that's kind of the problem that I'm having. It's not that I agree or I disagree. It's that the interpretation of this, just based on what the 8 emails we got, I feel like, do parents really understand what the notification will be? So I'll shut up now, let somebody else speak, but that's just kind of where I'm coming from. I like the policy. I'm just having a hard time that it's obviously not clear, or we wouldn't have had so many people coming with different thoughts about it after they read it.
And just to add in there, I'm thrilled that we got as many emails as we did. And like I said earlier, I think I received 30 to 40 emails that came just to me and not through the board on both sides. And not just on this specific section, but on all of them. And to the point I think it was Madam Chair made, this is a foundation. I believe it is a really good step forward. It's a really good first policy to have out there. But as we're seeing, even in this section that we have here, we're referencing other policies. While this policy is specific to the transgender conversation, it reaches out to the bullying policy. It reaches out to the 60-30, which is the existing parent-teacher communication policy. There's a discrimination policies that already exist. That this one reaches out and draws that web to all the policies that are going. So as we get it out there, and as we get the regulation that'll be developed from this, and then the state guidance, and we see what the state starts to do. Personally speaking, and I think I speak for most of the policy committee, we're not done with it. We'll go back, we'll revise it, we'll adjust it. If it didn't quite have the effect that we believe it should, then we relook at it. This is a work in progress, as are all of the policies.
Let's go to Jen and then Jaden.
So I'm sorry to belabor this. I know that we've talked a ton about this, but given that, you know, this is our second, if not third meeting that we've had students speak, I definitely want to make sure I clarify some things. And I think I understand the question Christine is asking as well. I think because the law is kind of gray, I think that's why people are interpreting it different. And, you know, I'm a parent first, and we're hearing from parents who understandably want to know what's going on with their children. And we're also hearing from parents who want to respect their children and the timeliness and the time and manner that they want to go about things. So it's actually really hard for me. But maybe we could talk about just if we can, how some things would look in real life. So, you know, as some of the students expressed tonight, they had the intention of bringing their parents in. They just weren't ready to do that maybe on day one or day two or week one or week two. You know, I'm afraid that their interpretation is that if they tell a, you know, trusted adult in school that they would like to change, you know, their identity or their pronoun or name from Jennifer to John, that's an immediate call home. I'm hoping that what you can tell me is that as you bring in Title IX, and I would assume guidance and whatnot, that, and then you would talk that the students this would be discussed with the students first, and perhaps there was a way that we could steer them towards, you know, having the discussion, support them having the discussion in a manner in which they were prepared to have that discussion with their parents. So that's my first question.
The reason why this is a hard thing to parse for us is because there is no such thing as one definable situation that is exactly, you know, a prototype example. So it really has to do with an interaction with the student in which, if the student makes very clear that they want their records changed, they want this done ubiquitously throughout the school system, they want it in every period, and that, you know, and in, you know, and in how the school is going to refer to them in every meeting that we have, the school system is required to do that. And in order to fulfill that, the school system will have to do communications to other parties to execute it. So for instance, you know, that Title IX coordinator becomes activated and would then have to reach out to the team of teachers and say, this young individual now, you know, is identifying in this way, and you'll need to be doing that in all of your classes. You'll need to be, you know, we'll need to be doing that when they're filling out, you know, their assignments. You know, that's what they'll be filling out, their assignments in that name. And when you refer to them in class, you would refer to them by that name. A conversation, a loving conversation with that Title IX coordinator, with that student would, you know, would have to have some part of, listen, because this is happening across all the classes and this is what you've wanted, you know, that is going to ultimately, you know, be something that your parent and guardian will be aware of. And, you know, in order to execute that in due diligence, there'll be an outreach to that parent and guardian to do that. So that's probably the best answer I can give you to that. If somebody in a class says, has a request that does not have to do with an extensive change and is just sharing something with someone, but doesn't intend on having this be implemented and isn't really sure themselves, and, you know, it's unclear what the student is saying, that's not something that, you know, gets systemized like that, because there's a spectrum of what a student shares. So if a student shares, you know, hey, I'm playing around, I like Wendy, I like, well, you know, I don't really know what I want right now. The teacher might say, well, what are you saying to me? Are you saying you would like to be referred to as Wendy? You know, are you saying, you know, I just need to be clear on what you're saying? Well, I'm not sure, you know, it's just something I'm kind of feeling out, you know, this is a nickname for me, you know. That's not a clear indication that the child wants to be referred to by a gender identity different than what they're perceived physically to be. So, you know, it really comes down to what is communicated to the school system. If it's going to be a ubiquitous change, expect it to be applied across the board. That is the responsibility of the school district to do so. If it's an anecdotal statement that's unclear and we really don't know what the child is really, saying overall, then that isn't a systemic change that necessarily would have to be reported across the board because it's unclear what the student's saying. So, this is one of those things that because of the way that, the state of Connecticut has provided its guidance and provided its requirements, and because every one of these situations, has variance to it, it's impossible to answer that question without answering it, this way. Because it would have to be, what are they saying? That doesn't necessarily mean they're saying they want to be referred to as a different gender identity. What is that student saying? That's why we engage the Title IX people, because they're trained, they know how to have conversations, and anyone who's uneasy with that, teachers don't have to, basically what the teachers are required to do is report that up to the Title IX coordinator if there's a desire to have a change like that. And that's where the Title IX coordinator gets involved, and then, there is outreach to the family at that.
Dr. Willett said that. I'm sorry, Jen, just one quick. Dr. Willett said that magic word there, that training, and that along with the guidance that the state's passing down and the various statutes and stuff that they're putting together, there is copious amounts of training that's going to come. I know Dr. Willett was working on getting some of that professional development put in place. There's training for boards that'll come down and how to deal with situations that are going to arise and how to dance that knife's edge between the rights and the protection of the children and protecting the family's ability to guide their children. So.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Tony, and thank you, Dr. Willett. That was extremely helpful. I have one more, and it's similar in nature, so sorry about that. So then in a situation where, a child expresses that they will be in harm. And I know we have gone over this before, but I just think it's important that we clarify it again. When they make a statement, when a child makes a statement, my parents are going to kill me. They're not necessarily meaning that their parents, in those situations, they're going to kill them. Involving DCF in a lot of situations it's a big step, and DCF being involved in this situation is a big step. Again, I'm assuming that when a child makes a statement like this, there are discussions or counseling around what does that child really mean by that? Is it an offhand comment? My mom's going to kill me, or is it that they truly feel that they will be in physical or emotional harm before we make that reach out to DCF? So in other words, a flippant statement, will that necessarily be a catalyst to immediately involve DCF? Or are we going to be doing a little bit more due diligence there to make sure that the child actually feels that they're in harm?
And Jen, you bring up a perfect, because we talked this specifically in the last policy meeting, and the wording that was placed into this policy was chosen to mimic exactly what the administration, the teachers, everybody that works in that school already has to do because they're mandated reporters. We're saying here that regardless, if it had nothing to do with gender identification, if it was about somebody preferred the color blue and they walked in and told their teacher, my dad's going to kill me because I like the color blue. The teachers are trained, the administration is trained to know when that is I use the word legitimate, when that is a real risk or when it is just a poor choice of words. So what we wanted to do here was fall right in line with that and say, you know what, your training, we're relying on your training, relying on everything you already do to protect that student and saying that applies here as well.
Yeah, and the language used here is the language used in DCF's own terminology, and it goes back to reasonable cause, right? So, as an educator, I'm a mandated reporter, and it's beholden upon me to kind of to make sure that if there's any reasonable cause that child could be heard, that I report it and let DCF decide. So, if somebody's saying, oh my gosh, I didn't do my homework, my dad's gonna kill me. That's different than someone breaking down crying, saying, I can't go home because I feel like I'm going to be killed by my father, right? Now, in one hand, it seems like an offhand comment about homework that we would all make, my enter relative here will kill me if I get home late tonight, things like that. So we obviously understand, in language, people do this in these conventions of language. And if we made a report on every convention of language that, anyone said, my wife's going to kill me when I get home from this PPT, we don't report those to the police as real feelings that this person's going to be killed, right? So it's common sense. But if we have a reasonable cause to believe, that if there is a genuine painful expression that this child will be harmed, we have to do that. And we're not really given the option of discretion on that. We let DCF decide that. That is what we're instructed to do. To let them make that determination. But offhand comments that, are part of our vernacular that, as you stated, my dad will kill me if I don't do my homework. No, no one would make a DCF referral on something like that. Or at least that would not be what I would consider reasonable policy.
Again, thank you both for the clarification.
Let's go to Jaden and then Jacob.
Very quickly, I think Dr. Willett, you mentioned it, and Tony, I think you mentioned it as well. I just wanted to circle back to the presentation from Attorney Ritter and her partner in crime that night. I apologize, I forgot her name. But they did mention something about, I'm sorry?
Attorney Gleason.
Attorney Gleason, thank you. They did mention something about, and again, I think Tony mentioned this as well, how it was expected that they would circle back around this topic in the state legislature, I think in October, something along those lines. And so, granted, and Tony, again, I think you mentioned it, I don't know if our expectations are that it'll stay in October. But the point here is that a lot of this seems to be just not final, granted from our end, but from the state end. And so I feel like it's hard to make things so, I guess, concrete in a couple different terms. But I feel like this represents exactly what the state is expecting school districts to do as of September 27, 2023. And so when that changes and when things are updated, I assume Tony and the policy committee will go back and take a look and scour through it and see, okay, that word, that means a little something different. So we have to update the policy accordingly. Am I accurate?
You're absolutely right, Jaden, that, the state is going to keep thinking about this and iterating it and trying to make it better for years to come. As Attorney Ritter said, right now, it's ambiguous. In October, Lord willing, November, when the guidance comes out, if they've made it clear, great. If they haven't, then we just waited. Our intent with the policy here was to put our best foot forward, get the best we could right now, get it on paper, let the district start working with it. And to the point you made incredibly clearly, if the state comes out with changes, we'll pull it right back into the committee and we'll look at those changes and how it applies. But rather than run the risk of going on without something, we felt the time to pull the trigger was now.
Perfect, thank you.
So first, thanks, Dr. Willett, for clarifying, the training portion of it. I was going to ask about that because this is significant, policy, particularly the privacy part. From my understanding, most of the other sections here are spelled out in state or federal law or regulations, but the privacy part, like has been said, is there's been some ambiguity there. So I think it's very important to get how that's going to be handled correctly very clearly flowed down. So I'm happy to see that. As far as the actual wording goes, I definitely share Christine's concern. If I were to write it, I don't think I would write it exactly like this. But that being said, I think that there's been a lot of consideration with what the attorney has said. I think that there's been a lot of thought. I don't think that, talking about this for another 3 months is going to make it better. So I'm fine to support it as is.
Okay, any other further comments from anyone? I just have one more thing to add.
I want to reiterate the portion in the blue that says the district shall, to the extent permitted by law, include the parents and our guardians in the process to protect the welfare rights of the transgender or gender non-conforming student in accordance with TPS policy, parent-teacher communication. So right there, it says they'll be included based on the parent-teacher communication. I don't think we can add, I mean, it refers to that other policy, what the guidelines is and what the actual path of communication will be. I don't think we want to add that into here because that just muddies up the policy and makes it about another policy. I think referring to that policy definitely gives us clear direction or gives the clear guidance of what the process is. John, I appreciate your questions because I think putting it in layman's terms of an actual scenario of a situation is an eye opener for all of our folks because again, seeing it from all sides of all aspects of it, we have families concerned about not being involved with decisions that their children are making. And we have other folks, we want to make sure that the students, young adults, children feel comfortable to bring their concerns to somebody's attention to handle it accordingly. So we have to make sure that we're making everybody comfortable in a respective situation. This is a very sensitive topic across the board, as many of our policies we've discussed this evening have been. I definitely, without taking the emotion out of it, right? These are the same steps we would take in any given situation when a student comes to the administration with something, whatever it may be. The administration is going to follow the appropriate steps, and if as a mandatory reporter, something needs to be pulled in, we'll do that, regardless of the topic at hand. So I don't think adding other things is going to make it more clear. I think we're referencing existing policies, we're referencing law, we're referencing safety, we're referencing security, we're referencing the entire parties involved. So, it's our job to make sure that we have that available for the public. Like we did get a lot of emails on all aspects, and the emails seem to me as concerned, wanting to be more informed. So I'm hoping that our thorough discussion this evening, and even responses to emails or conversations with Dr. Willard or conversations with Tony regarding what was discussed in the policy committee, and conversations with our attorney that gave us the proper guidance to ensure that we're not only committed, but we are compliant, to ensure that we're handling all parties involved appropriately and giving everybody that support, parents, students, staff, so on and so forth. I think that, as Tony said, or as everybody said, that there is going to be more guidance. Do I feel strongly that it's going to happen in October? Probably not, Tony. I'll reiterate what you said. But we do need to give some sort of foundation to the folks at Taunton Public Schools and to the families and to the administration of Taunton Public Schools. And I think that this document just does that. Again, I thank everybody for sending in their emails, and I'm hoping that this clarified concerns, because the goal is to always include as many folks as possible that are around this students, and do the right thing for the safety, security, and moving forward positively for our students and our staff. So again, I just hope that this clarified some questions, because the emails did seem, they were concerning. And and misinformation can be making people concerned for different situations. So I'm hoping that we clarified some misinformation, if there was misinformation given out there or misunderstanding of how this read. I think we dissected it quite thoroughly this evening and from very different points of view. And so I'm appreciative of the conversation, and I feel strongly that we can move forward with this in a positive and productive way and do what's right for the entire Taunton Public School system.
Okay. I would say that if there are no further, questions or comments on this, then I will entertain the motion that's on the row.
Motion to approve policy 5700 transgender and gender non-conforming youth.
Second.
Okay, any further conversation? Okay, seeing none, we will do a roll call vote, so we'll start with Jason.
Aye.
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 Aye. Griffin,
Aye.
Tony,
Aye.
Lord?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well, therefore this passes unanimously. And once again, I do firmly believe that this is a great foundation for whatever changes may occur, because obviously we know that October is not gonna really happen. Thank you very much, everyone. At this time, let's move to the public participation. Once again, please list your name and address for the record, and you'll be given 2 minutes on the clock. And the comments just need to be related to the items on the agenda for tonight. Okay. Are you good? Okay, Lisa?
Hello, Lisa Day Lewis again, 63 Tall Green. I just wanted to come on again and speak a little bit about my experience as a parent in town and talk a little bit about how PFLAG Tallinn Mansfield was formed. My son came out when we were living in Mansfield about 3 years ago as transgender. Things didn't really change for us much when he came out. He did come out to his friends before he came out to me, and I was happy that he had his own timeline and he wasn't, nobody else told me about his realizations, and we were able to work through everything that we needed to do. But for me, when I needed answers, when I needed support, when I needed resources, I went to PFLAG Hartford. When I moved to Tallinn and I realized that it was a very different environment and there weren't as many resources through human services and their schools, myself and 2 other parents started this chapter. This chapter is for the parents and families of Tallinn and Mansfield. We have a virtual meeting starting tomorrow online. Any parents are allowed to attend. I run the meeting. You can come ask questions. People need to understand what it's like for these queer, transgender, non-binary, gay and lesbian kids. Please come to the meeting. You can register. It's a safe space. Ask questions. We can talk about this policy. You can talk about anything you want. And use the resources available to you in the town, because I dedicate so much of my time to this effort and it's all volunteer work. And I really want people to understand what these kids needs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisa. And if there are any further online viewers who would like to speak at this time, please raise your hand. Okay, seeing none, we'll close out the public participation. And we can move on to points of information. Do any board members have anything that they would like to say at this time? Okay, seeing no hands and no one in the room, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
There we go. Tony, there's your thumbs up. Okay, so we got Tony, we got Griffin, and we got Ford. Okay, everyone, have a great night. We're adjourned at 9:45.